what to do about it. Because right now, the technology companies say, look, it's our data, we're going to hold on to that data, and, you know, we can't just give up user data. Now, there is a point to that. You know that, Senator. I mean, it is a slippery slope. What is the government looking at? What does the government have access to in terms of people's private property? But what would you like to see in terms of the government doing with technology companies to ensure that the FBI and lawmakers and investigators can better track terrorism?
Well, as you know, with encryptions, that the individual has a key, obviously, to get into the site. I see nothing wrong with a key being supplied to the Justice Department that would require a court order before the government would be allowed to use it if there's suspicious activities that would warrant such a thing, and it would require a court order. That is, I know, strenuously resisted by by Silicon Valley. But they've got to come up with a proposal that changes the status quo, where someone contacts ISIS, they're immediately sent to a secure site. We've got to combat that, Maria. There's too much of that going on.
Yeah, it's really extraordinary. I mean, so we're dealing with two issues. On the one hand, we're not even looking at social media. That's first of all. I mean, you know, anybody who applies for a job, that employer is looking on social media to see what that person said. You go on a date, you Google the person. I mean, this is the basics. And then on the other hand, we have data, but it's encrypted. In other words, we don't know what the data says because the technology companies have been able to encrypt the communication.
Right. First of all the president has to do, or even the State Department, or actually it should be the president, anyone applying for a job, they have to look at the social media. End of story. But then when we get into this whole encryption issue, there's got to be a debate and discussion, but the status quo is not acceptable, and I believe that Silicon Valley has yet to accept that fact.
Who was right on this the other night in the debate? You know, we had that debate where Senators Cruz and Senator Rubio were getting on each other and going at each other about this, because I guess Senator Cruz had signed a bill that basically gave the NSA less power and more power to users who didn't want their information shared.
Well, you know, politicians sometimes weather vane a bit. At that point, it was Senator Cruz, Rand Paul, Senator Lee, some others, and Democrats that, because of Snowden, they wanted to make sure that none of these things would happen, and that they wanted to make sure that the bad federal government doesn't get engaged and isn't allowed to do certain things. And that's why the act that was passed did remove some of the capabilities that the federal government has. That's just a fact. Now, Senator Cruz can deny all he wants, but facts are stubborn things.
Yeah. What about, I mean, he's ruffled a lot of feathers, I guess, over the past 2 years in the Senate. How do his Republican colleagues feel about him? You know, I mean, this whole idea of bringing us together, he's moving up in the polls. Do you think he's the kind of individual who can bring us together if he were to get the nomination? Because I know that there are some, you know, he's ruffled some feathers within the Senate. What's your take?
Well, I hope that we as Republicans in a fair and honest election would support the nominee of the party. That's why we are Republicans. But I can also tell you, I do not believe that Senator Cruz will be elected Miss Congeniality at any time soon amongst his Republican colleagues, much less Democrats.
Okay. Miss Congeniality. That speaks volumes, Senator. All right, let me ask you this. Let's talk about the war on terror right now. Senator, what needs to be done in terms of boots on the ground, in terms of our strategy?
Well, first of all, we have to admit that it's failing, what the president is doing. We are in the worst state we have been since the end of World War II. And there will be, I tell you now, there will be more attacks on the United States of America unless something dramatically changes. This president does not have a strategy.
Right.
He does not have a clue. What needs to be done? We need to have about 5,000 or so more troops in Iraq, which, by the way, the Iraqis now are so controlled by the Iranians that they may not accept such a thing. But that's a different part of the story. We need a multinational force of Arab countries, in particular with some European, about 10,000 American troops, over 100,000 American troops, and we can go in and take Raqqa. They are not that strong. We can take them. By the way, the Saudis have now led a coalition, which they didn't even tell us about, to fight against the ISIS, because they have no confidence or trust in us whatsoever.
Unbelievable. And I know Lindsey Graham has said that it's a game changer. Now terrorists are setting up these marriages, you know, for the fiancé visa. We've given out 40,000 fiancé visas. Senator, it's great to have you on the program and your valuable instincts. Thank you so much, Senator.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon. Senator John McCain will be